Good morning, everyone. So I'd like to talk with you a little bit about seed independence, but before I do, I want to dip into what Joel talked with us about a minute ago here. One of the things that was important for Rebecca and I with our children, or for me especially, was that I would get to work with my children. And when Brenton and Logan were young, I wasn't sure that I would get that opportunity because both of them didn't really think that working with Dad would be that much fun. And it might have been because Dad worked a little bit too much. I never asked them why. But one thing that I did was when they were resisting me a little bit, I said, okay, I'd like for you to work for me for a year or two, and then you have to work somewhere else, because I don't want you to grow up with me being your own boss, with me being your only boss. And that relieved pressure from them, and now they felt like, okay, they could work for Dad. If they didn't like it, they had an out. And today, both of my sons are working with me, and I'm extremely grateful for what Brenton is doing at Berlin Seeds and what Logan is doing at Carlisle Printing. Another little thing on regarding what Joel shared with us, one thing that was difficult for me to do, but I think I got it done pretty well with our children, is I never used work as a punishment. Work is never a punishment. Taking away fun things can be a punishment, but having your children do work as a punishment, I think, sends the wrong signal to our children. It sends the signal that that work is a pain, and when I do something wrong, I have to work harder. Okay, so seed independence. Feels a little bit funny for me to talk about seed independence and own a seed distribution company, but one of the reasons that I bought Berlin Seeds was because I believe that it's crucial that the ownership of seed and care for seed is in individual hands and not just in corporations' hands and not even just in a seed distributor's hands. So just to see how many of you here, I'd like to know how many of you have saved seeds in the past. Can I see a raise of hands? How many of you have saved seeds? Good portion of you. How many of you have saved seeds and failed? About the same amount. So there you go. Thanks for giving it a go. I'm not going to tell you how to save seeds today. I just like to give the big picture perspective of why it's important, why I believe it's important that individuals care for seeds. So my goal is to convince you that seed steward is important and possible. Personal seed stewardship is important and possible. And hopefully, by the time I'm finished, I'll have convinced you that you can do something to steward seeds, either yourself or someone close to you. The single thing that got me focused on paying attention to food as well as seeds was when I realized one day that the gluten intolerance and lactose intolerance and food allergies in general shouldn't be normal. And a lot of people around me were suffering from those diseases, and people from all walks of life, from all spiritual beliefs, from all, the only common thing I could find was food. So I decided to pay attention to food. Well, after a year or two of paying attention to food and thinking about food, just kind of passively thinking about it, I realized that David Klein, a friend of mine, long ago, when I was between 7th and 8th grade, and then after the 8th grade, I took my bicycle and rode 12 to 15 miles to close to Fredericksburg to help with thrashing and making hay. And during those days, he was on the thrashing crew, and he would say that we are a seed-eating species, or we're seed-eating people. We are sustained from seed, and that stuck with me, and I landed there after paying attention to food for a little while. Seed and soil are, I think, the solution to the food allergy problem that we're experiencing today. And I also believe that the corporations don't hold the solution. I believe that you and I hold the solution. You and I are the only we can change the tide. Corporations are designed for profit. If they don't have profit, it doesn't work. Corporations care about profit. Moms and dads care about children. So if we care about our children, we shouldn't look to a corporation to make wise decisions for our children. We should make wise decisions for our children. And you and I can put pressure on them by asking them questions. We can put pressure on the corporation because the corporation has to follow the profit. And if the people demand something, they will start changing their ways. It'll take a while, but I believe if the people demand something, we vote with our pocketbooks, and well, I guess today we vote with our phones maybe, but we vote with our pocketbooks, and if we ask the right questions and put the right demands on a corporation, then the corporation will follow, because if they don't follow, their profits will suffer. So I know I'm speaking to the choir here today. All of you care about this, and so I was concerned that I'd be telling you things that you already knew. I hope I am telling you something you already knew, but I hope I'm also encouraging you on the path you're on and giving you extra ammunition for the road. So I'd like for you to think when you're thinking about food, I think it's important that we cash the check regarding food. What I mean by that is the way we've been doing food in the past, is it working or isn't it working? If you believe it's working, then don't change anything. If you believe it isn't working, then change one thing. Just change one thing. When I think about cashing the check, I remember, I'll share with you a personal story, again, about my two sons. When they were younger, they had this favorite pastime of fighting with each other, as most healthy young boys do that are 2 years apart in age. And generally moms don't like when boys fight. They don't understand why in the world two human beings would be wired in a way that would cause them to fight. And so I was generally called upon to keep the boys from fighting. And one day, a couple times I had spanked them and said, listen, we can't fight. You have to stop fighting. And that wasn't working. I thought, okay, what do I do now? Spanking isn't working. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I thought, wait a minute. I'm telling them not to hit each other, and I'm hitting them. I know spanking isn't hitting them, but physically, I was striking them and spanking them to keep them from fighting. I thought, you know what? That's probably not the best idea. Let's stop that for a minute. So I thought, okay, what do I do? And I said, got both of my sons, I had an idea. I got both of my sons sitting in front of me. I said, you know what? You like fighting, don't you? Yep, we kind of like fighting. You know, we just enjoy it. Well, let's try it out, I said. Here's what we'll do. You hit me, and then I hit you, and you hit me, and I hit you, and every time we hit each other, you hit me harder than you did the last time, and I hit you harder than I hit you the last time. And you should have seen Mom's eyes. She thought I was losing my head, and maybe I was. I'm not sure, but I tried it. And I said, okay. And I honestly hit back harder every time until they gave up. I was bigger, they were smaller. Today I couldn't, that wouldn't work. I couldn't do that. And I knew that, that day was coming, so I had to figure out how to stop these fights before the day came where I couldn't stop them. So they would hit me, I hit them back, and finally they gave up. And fortunately, I didn't give up. I said, okay, fighting only works if you're the biggest brother. Fighting only works if you're the toughest. If you're not the toughest, fighting isn't a good option. And if you're the strongest, if you resolve that fighting is the best way to settle something, then the ultimate of fighting is killing. So if there's two people and the ultimate of settling something by fighting is killing, one of you ends up killing the other one. Is that what you want? No, that's not what we want. Well, if that's not what you want, then don't fight. Because fighting to settle something, you did first, he did first, I did this because it just doesn't work to fight that out. So Brenton and Logan still fought after that. I think they may have fought more peacefully, but they understood that the end of fighting and that fighting to settle something is not the right solution, because ultimately, if fighting to settle something is the ultimate way of settling something, the strongest person will be by himself because he'll kill everyone else. So I'd like to do the same thing with seed and food. Take what you've been doing and cash the check. If it's working, if what you've been doing is working, keep on doing it. If it hasn't been working, do something different. I'm not sure that me sitting the boys down and telling them to hit me and me hitting, I'm not sure that was the right thing to do. But what I had been doing before that wasn't working either. And I believe what I did worked better. So why is seed independence and seed sovereignty important? As John mentioned, I believe seed is the only currency on the planet, or is the currency of the planet. All other currencies mimic seed. So I think the people who create our currency systems, I think they're jealous about seed, because seed is what they would ultimately like for their currency to be. I had a friend, Matt Beachy, and him and I shared a lot, and I would speak my mind to him, and one day, so he would go back to his furniture store and tell his crew something that I had shared. One day I walked in, and his salespeople said, "Hey, what's your word of wisdom for today?" And I said, "Well, seed is the only currency of the planet, and you don't have any. That makes you broke." And they looked at me like, what are you telling me? And I said, not only are you broke, I know you won't do anything different, even though I told you you're broke. You'll go home and you won't do anything different. That makes you broke and, I'm not sure, that makes you broke and stupid, I said. And these were friends, so I could kid with them like that. But I would like for every family to have what I consider currency, because I think it's important that currency, or that seed, is managed by individuals, not corporations and even seed distributors. Seed is a form of wealth, and I believe our Creator wants all of us to be wealthy. Our government says they want all of us to be wealthy. They tax the rich and pass it out to the poor, or so they say. And so I think there's some truth in them wanting to pass money around or get money in different people's hands, because the more that money circulates, the more tax it generates, or the more tax potential it generates. And I believe the same thing about seed. The more that seed circulates, the better off we are, because seed is in many different hands, and the responsibility for seed is spread. I consider Joseph in the Scriptures. Joseph was a man of God in the Scriptures, and he stored all of the grain. And as Christians, we see him as saving the known world. As Jews, I think commonly among Jews, they see Joseph as the beginning of slavery, as the beginning of bondage. And I think when food is in the hands of a few, then bondage is usually down the road. When seed and food is in the hands of many, then health and strength and freedom is sustained. So when you think about cashing the check, I'd like for you to, one of the things that generally we don't talk about when it comes to food is nutrition. And I'm not sure what the solution is with the lack of talk about nutrition. We buy based on looks, we buy based on price, and we judge our food based on looks, we judge based on price, but we don't necessarily have good ways to measure nutrition. And the other day I thought, isn't it odd that most of the really important things in life we don't talk about a whole lot? Most of the really important things in life, we kind of, somehow we think that everyone should know about it, but, you know, we're not really responsible for others knowing. So I just made a quick list here of important things that we tend to leave just kind of brushed to the wayside. Our belief about God, you know, it's commonly accepted for us to believe in something, but to share our belief is often seen as negative. Sex and reproduction. We often don't want to talk about that because it's, you know, it's just a difficult topic to talk about. I think we should talk about it more. I recently realized that it should be every dad's responsibility to talk to their sons about delivering a baby. I never saw it that way until our oldest son had a baby, and I thought, you know what? It's actually my responsibility to teach him. Color rendering, I'm just going through my list here. Color rendering index in lighting. The quality of light. We talk about how bright something is, we talk about how energy efficient something is, but we don't talk about the quality of light. The nutrition in food, the ingredients in beer and wine. It's strange that the beer and wine industry somehow figured out that they want their labels to they don't want to have to disclose what they put into their drinks. Profit in a company. I own 3 companies, and generally I don't talk much about profit. Interest on a credit card. We talk about what all we can buy with a credit card, but we don't talk about the interest. So I'd like to encourage you today to ask hard questions when you go to buy food, when you go to your neighbor, when you go to the farmer. Ask those hard questions in life, because individuals like you and I, asking the right question to people that we pay for their services, it's just responsible for us to do that. Bill Gates spends, according to a 2010 talk, Bill Gates spends most of his time at the Bill Gates Foundation studying 2 things. Anyone know what those 2 things are? Well, that's the video, but he says in that video, he says he spends most of his time at the foundation studying vaccines and seeds. Strange combination, vaccines and seeds. Studying life itself and then studying vaccines, which, you know, I won't go into that topic, but he does talk about vaccines in lieu of talking about population reduction, which seems really strange. Either it's really easy for me to misunderstand his speech, he's not a very good public speaker, or somehow he just got those 2 things mixed together in that speech and didn't know what he was doing. But he talks about vaccines in that speech. So if Bill Gates, one of the men with more resources than we can imagine, spends his time studying seeds, I think it's worth your and my time to steward seeds. Another thing that I think gets in the way of us caring for seeds and caring for our planet is the common Christian escape mentality, where somehow we believe that it's our duty just to get through this life, and then when we die, we go to heaven and everything is better. Or we think it's our responsibility to prepare for when Jesus comes back and trashing the earth somehow, not caring for the place that God created for us is okay. And that mentality, I think, strikes, or for me, that hindered my interest in caring for the planet and in caring for the future, because I thought, well, the future is imminent, and I can't do anything about that anyway. I don't see it that way. I do believe God made the earth, and He put us here to care for it and be responsible, and He really likes us. God really likes us and our children and our children's children, and He wants us to do things that are responsible for the long haul. So when I challenge you to do one thing, I think of another personal story. I guess I'm stuck on my children today. I remember the day when I told my children that they are not allowed to say "I can't." And when I said that, it seemed really harsh, because it felt like I was getting them into a corner, because what if I asked them to do something and they actually feel like they can't? What are they going to say? So I said, yes, I don't want you to say that you can't do something. If you say you can't, I'm going to spank you. But you can say, I don't want to. Now, if you don't think that takes a lot of guts as a parent to say to your kids they can tell you they don't want to do something, that's the whole thing you're fighting. That you ask them, I don't want to. And you work hard to keep that down. Here I'm telling them that they can tell me that they don't want to do something. And I think that's important, because if they don't want to, it's important that I know they don't want to. And I'd also told them that they can say, I don't know how, and they can say, would you help me? And I felt like those three things, I don't want to, I don't know how, and would you help me, those three things give them an out, and they don't have to say I can't anymore. The first day after I did that, our oldest daughter she believed what I told her. Brianna she climbed trees. She was just a wild woman. And she was just young. She was probably 8 or 9 years old. And I think she in her mind, everything, the I can't was washed away, and everything was a possibility. So I tell you that story to encourage you as you consider seed and seed stewardship, as you consider saving your own seed, growing, doing a longer garden that doesn't look pretty to the neighbors, so that you can harvest seeds and take the time to save your own seeds and take care of your soil to make sure that your seeds do well. As you consider that, I would like for you to also not say, I can't. I would like for you to be able to say, I don't know how, I don't want to, or would you help me? But I think we're better off. I think the world opens. It was like Brianna's world opened the next day. Mom didn't like it because she was into everything. And so I hope it balanced out a little bit after that. So seed stewardship, saving your own seed, it is important. It's important that seed and food is in the hands of individuals. It's important that us as individuals put pressure on our suppliers so that they pay attention to what is important for us and our children. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Welcome to Timbercrest. We have a really exciting speaker team here, as well as the tents are loaded with excellent exhibitors that I'm sure you'll be able to learn something from. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.